I wanted to share today about my Mayo Clinic experience. So many of you have asked about what the Mayo Clinic is like or how I got there. And so I just thought I'd share all about my journey because the Mayo Clinic literally saved my life. So I had a not super great endocrinologist, which many people with Addison's can relate to, and he didn't really give me all the necessary steroids I needed to function. He had only given me my cortisol and not anything to help me retain water, so I was still pretty dehydrated and struggling with that. He also did not give me my emergency injection kit or inform me that I needed a medical alert bracelet. So I was pretty uninformed about the disease and the severity overall. I continued to get sicker and sicker and sicker and continued to lose weight and get bronzer. And this doctor also prescribed me 100 milligrams of DHEA, another hormone that my body wasn't producing. And I was taking that and I wasn't sleeping at all. Literally, like maybe an hour a night for at least a month. So I started going a little senile, not getting any real rest. And we just couldn't figure out what was happening in my body. And I went to my primary care physician, and she told me that I needed to go to the Mayo Clinic. She didn't have the answers. My endocrinologist clearly didn't have the answers. And she said, you know, if you were a 60-year-old woman, maybe we would just let this go and let you struggle. But you're young, and you need to figure out what's happening because you can't deteriorate this young. And I agreed. So I knew nothing about the Mayo Clinic other than it's this fancy elite place. And my first thought was, I'll never afford it. And my second thought was, I'll never get in. And I asked my doctor, like, how do you go to the Mayo Clinic? You can't just show up. And she said, you call and inquire and see what happens next. So prior to doing that, I did a little research and checking and had discovered that we had reached our medical deductible because I had done so many tests and labs between endocrinology and between gastroenterology and my gynecologist that we had paid so much already. We paid our out of pocket. And so I was under the impression that maybe that would lighten a financial strain at the Mayo Clinic. So I call and inquire, and they're kind of like, I call the Rochester one because that has, after doing some research, the greatest endocrinology team there. You know, each center specializes in something different, and the Rochester one was solid in endocrinology. So I called, chatted with them. They said, send us your paperwork, send us your lab work, and we'll just see, you know, maybe a couple months before someone can get back to you. And I had my doctor fax everything over. And within even maybe 2 hours, I got a phone call back. And the woman was like, we need to see you now. Your numbers are out of this world. We've never seen anything like this, and we need to see you. When can you come? And I was just alarmed. First of all, I'm like, what's going on? What's wrong? And she alerted me, the doctors alerted her that my DHEA levels were so high. So I'm going back and I'm going, well, I'm taking this 100 milligrams a day. Maybe I shouldn't be taking that much. And so I call my doctor and he freaks out and he's like, why are you taking 100 milligrams a day? You're only supposed to be taking 10. And I'm like, whoa, look at this prescription. And the prescription he had written was for 100. So a mistake in a zero totally was destroying my body. Because of that, however, my numbers were crazy and the Mayo Clinic wanted to see me and see what the heck was going on with me. And so they booked me an appointment a month out. We bought a one-way ticket. We didn't know how long we'd be there. We didn't know what it would all entail. And after confirming with the Mayo Clinic that we had reached our deductible and our insurance would take care of everything and verifying with our insurance, we decided that I was just going to take every single test while we were out there. Because why not? It's going to be free. So we flew out and I started the Mayo Clinic journey. So the really wonderful thing about the Mayo Clinic is they have so many resources that work together. The doctors are a team for the first time ever, whereas in every other doctor's office, you tend to experience so much isolation and guilt from one doctor to another, and they don't communicate and they don't work together. Whereas here at the Mayo Clinic, you go and take a test for your stomach, and all that is sent to the dermatologist and to the endocrinologist and to the gynecologist at the same time. So they have the same information about you immediately and are already working on how can these connect to one another, which is huge. The one thing about the Mayo Clinic that is a little challenging is it's really big. Tons of floors, great accessibility for people of all abilities. However, you get these appointments, and you can keep these appointments when you have them, or you can try to get in sooner. And in order to do that, you have to be fast, or you have to have an advocate for you. So I was really, really lucky to have my mom come with me to the Mayo Clinic, and she was my person. She was my body. So while I'd be in one test, she would literally run up to the next doctor's office and wait in line for me to try to get me in early somewhere else so that we could get in as much testing as possible in the shortest amount of time, paying for less hotels. So trying to minimize costs and get answers as soon as possible. So that was really great. So if you have someone to go with you to the Mayo Clinic, I highly recommend it, because that will help you go from one place to the next. And if you're running late to an appointment, they can run and go be that person, because if you don't show up or if you don't give notice, you lose that appointment and you don't know when you're going to get it again. So it's very important to be able to go from appointment to appointment, or have someone go in and say, she's coming, she'll be in a minute. That was huge. Because of that, we were able to see, I saw my endocrinologist, I saw a dermatologist, a gastroenterologist, and a gynecologist. I believe that's all I saw while there. But I was able to get my bone density scan. I was able to get a proper Addison's diagnosis. They did do the stim test again, which, if you're not familiar, is when they check your cortisol levels to see where they're at different times of the day, in morning and afternoon or at night. And I was worried, because I knew going into this, if they wanted to take that test, I was going to have to come off my steroids. And I had predetermined before going I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to risk coming off of them. And then we got there, and I met my endocrinologist, and I felt so safe in her care, and that she was so knowledgeable, that it really just came to this point where I was like, this is the only place that I can do this test and feel like I'm probably not going to die, because my hotel's next door to the hospital. These people are the best in their field. And if I go into a crisis, they can save me. They know what to do. It's just literally a test to confirm you have Addison's disease. And they did it to be sure that I wasn't misdiagnosed. They pulled me off my steroids for 24 hours. Of course, it was challenging. My body didn't fully shut down, but slowly started to. I wasn't really able to walk, so we were lucky enough to be able to get a wheelchair, and my mom pushed me around, but the brain fog was so extreme, and the heart pain was so extreme, and the breathing was so hard. And then when they took all my blood for that, oh God, all the blood work that we do as Addisonians, but this particular blood work was so painful because I was so low cortisol, and they just took vial after vial after vial, and I was just in excruciating pain. But of course the test results were, oh yeah, you have Addison's disease. And so I was able to take my steroids again, and they helped me find the right dose to take at the right times of day, which that can be a game changer. Not knowing how much to take or when to take it, that will totally mess with everything. But they also informed me on everything about my disease. They gave me a video that was instructing you how to give an emergency injection. They taught me, they taught my mom, they informed me all about the medical alert protocol, and gave me a whole cheat sheet on stress dosing for every situation: fever, illness, travel, hiking, altitude. Like, they gave me all the tools I needed to be a person again. So then after leaving there and getting answers and resources from endocrinology and gastroenterology and learning how those components work together, I was able to leave there with a plan of action. And the amount of progress I made in even a short amount of time was out of this world. Like, I went to Mayo Clinic in November of 2016, and by January of 2017, I regained my cycle for the first time in almost 2.5 years at that point, almost 3. I gained weight. I was finally putting weight back on. I was sleeping and I was feeling normal. Even one of those things would have been a victory, but to have all of those was huge. So I was finally feeling whole again. And when I first got out to the Mayo Clinic and they looked at all my numbers and they looked at me in person, their initial thought was, we don't understand why you're not dead. You shouldn't be alive. This paperwork and these numbers results, you're not healthy. And they, after analyzing and going through everything and talking through everything with me, they realized one of the only things keeping me alive was the fact that I ate so clean. I ate only clean raw foods, high proteins, no grains, no nuts, no seeds, full autoimmune paleo. And that was the last thing keeping me alive until I got to the Mayo Clinic. So I can't speak enough about the Mayo Clinic out there. The team was phenomenal. The endocrinologist was wonderful. They helped me out with my bone density scan and figuring out managing my osteoporosis, which I also have due to the steroids. And they just were the people that saved my life.